New reports suggest the ivory tower is sinking into debt, while others facing intense demands to keep on top of technology and enhance competition for top students. Joining me to discuss the report is Brian McKenna, a higher education leader for Deloitte Canada, and here in the studio, Zach Daler from the Canadian Alliance of Student Associations. Welcome to you both. I want to go to you first, Brian, ask you about this report. What's sort of the top three big challenges that are facing higher education in Canada right now?
Well, obviously at the outset, a key item that they're challenged with is the funding status in terms of a shrinking funding formula over the years, a reduction in their endowment funds, and also alumni just not able to commit their funding to the same level that they had in the past. Add to that challenges around attracting the top talent, whether that's faculty, staff, and students into the institution, and leveraging the technology that you were talking about earlier to engage the students and attract students to the universities here in Canada and elsewhere.
Are we heading into a time where universities, the bulge will go through and there'll actually be competition for student bodies, not just the cream of the crop, but for all students?
I think we're starting to see the start of that now. It is happening. It's happening on a global scale in addition to local. You're seeing some universities specialize in terms of their area of focus. So organizations, institutions are becoming very targeted around the type of student that they want to attract to their organization, and they need to be in order to get those people on board.
Okay, Zach Daler, you read the report, I take it.
Yes.
Do you disagree with anything you read?
No, I think the report highlights some important challenges that the post-secondary education sector are facing. The one thing that I would note in the report that I think not enough emphasis is placed on the important role that the federal government has to play in funding post-secondary education. Endowments and alumni investments and those types of things are very important, but we can't at the end of the day forget that the government in the 90s made some serious cuts to post-secondary education. So not only are we dealing with massive infrastructure problems, we're dealing with a huge amount or a huge lack of government investment in our post-secondary education system.
I just want to stick with you. You heard my conversation with Lisa LaFlamme, you know, the mob votes. And is that real? Like, are we seeing some sort of end of apathy?
I think it's very real. I think it's very genuine, and I think students are saying, you know, I'm fed up with what's happening in this country, not just related to post-secondary education. While that is a major component, I think that they want to be talked to on all levels. And, you know, it's important, going back to the report, you know, getting students in the door is absolutely important. You know, investments in terms of infrastructure, yes, but without students, you know, those investments and those campuses don't exist.
Okay, I want to go back to you, Brian, on this. Aside from throwing great gobs of money at post-secondary education, is there anything that can be done to sort of make sure these top 10 problems become less of a problem?
And it's not necessarily about throwing big gobs of money about it. It's about making sure that the right investment is being made. So the administration, working with students, working with faculty, they need to look at their own shop, understand where their strengths are, how to build on those strengths, and then look for opportunities to drive home the advantage around some of these issues and address those issues in a surgical manner. So it's not just about necessarily addressing it with more money, because the reality is the money may not be out there. It's about how do they appropriately use the next discretionary dollar and the next discretionary hour.
Okay, I wanted to stay with you on that point, because if it doesn't come out of the government's pocket, it's probably going to be forced onto the students to pay for their education. Is there anything in the report that deals with the rising tuition problem and how that's forming a barrier to a lot of students to get into it?
And I don't think that the money necessarily needs to come from the student population. Student population is becoming taxed and more taxed on an ongoing basis. The institutions need to look at other opportunities for revenue generation, whether it's looking inwards in terms of their own asset structure, looking at their own facilities in terms of how they may use those in partnership with communities to generate revenue. It's about looking hard at the research side of their organization and potentially driving revenue that way. So I think there are alternatives. They need to be alternatives above and beyond looking at the obvious, which is looking at students for providing more dollars.
That's music to your ears, isn't it, Zach?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't disagree that students right now are heavily taxed to subsidize a lack of government investment. But I think in terms, one thing that the report does highlight is the importance of how the education system is changing, investments in infrastructure in terms of technology, allowing people in rural areas to access courses online. Those types of things are important investments, and we need to change to address those needs of students. But the report highlights the importance that post-secondary education is a fundamental piece in recovering this economy and moving us forward. We just need to make sure that the appropriate level of government investment through a dedicated transfer is there, and that government's taking it seriously.
Quick final question to you. Are you disappointed at how little that seems to be on the campaign trail?
Right now it seems to be more about who's got the better attack ad as opposed to who's talking about the better issue. But you know, I'm optimistic. There's 12, 13 days left here. We can have some good, serious issue conversations and policy discussions.
Okay, Zach Daler, the Canadian Alliance of Student Associations, and Brian McKenna of Deloitte Canada. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay.